The first thing I thought when I saw her side of the closet half empty was that she'd gone to stay with her sister after another stupid argument about table centerpieces. We were 6 days from the wedding. Her name was Claire. For 4 years, she had been the person I called when something good happened, and the person I reached for when something bad did. We lived in a rented townhouse with a small yard we kept promising to fix. My mother adored her. My younger brother used to joke that Claire had already been absorbed into the family like she'd always belonged there. Nothing dramatic had happened before that week. At least that's what I told myself. My life felt embarrassingly normal. Work during the day. Wedding spreadsheets at night. 100 tiny decisions about flowers, seating charts, whether my uncle could be trusted not to get drunk before dinner. I remember standing in our bedroom staring at the empty hangers. Her overnight bag was gone. Her passport too. No note. Just silence. And the weirdest part was that her phone was still charging on the nightstand. At first I convinced myself there had to be an explanation. Claire had always disappeared emotionally when stress got too big. Not physically. She would get quiet, retreat inward, answer questions with, "I'm fine," until I stopped asking. I told myself this was just a bigger version of that. But there had been signs. 3 months before the wedding, she started taking late evening walks alone. She guarded her phone in a way she never had before. Once, I walked into the kitchen and she turned the screen over so fast she knocked over a glass of water. I joked, "Planning my murder?" She smiled, but it looked forced. "Just bridesmaid drama." I believed her because I wanted to. That's the part one still hate about myself. I saw things that didn't fit, and I kept smoothing them over because I was in love with the future I had already built in my head. A house. Kids. Christmases. Growing old beside somebody who knew all the stupid details of me. You don't question a foundation when you've already started decorating the walls. The day after she vanished, I called everyone. Her sister said she hadn't seen her. Her best friend sounded nervous. Too careful. Maybe she just needs space. 6 days before our wedding? I asked. She loves you. That sentence landed wrong. Not because of what she said. Because of how she said it. My stomach started doing that cold, sinking thing. I barely slept. On the second night, around 2 in the morning, I picked up Claire's phone. I'd never gone through it before. Not once in 4 years. I wish I could say I hesitated because of dignity. I hesitated because I was scared of being right. The phone lit up with a message on the lock screen. "Did you tell him yet?" No name. Just a number. My hands actually started shaking. I opened it. There were months of messages. Long ones. Intimate ones. Fragments of plans. Regrets. Memories I wasn't part of. And one sentence that made my vision blur. "I can't marry him when I still love you." I sat on the kitchen floor until sunrise. I don't remember crying at first. I remember staring. My brain kept trying to make it into something smaller. Old messages. Emotional confusion. A temporary thing. Then I kept reading. He wasn't some random guy. It was Evan. My older cousin. The same cousin who had stood next to me 2 months earlier helping me pick out a tux. The same guy who came to family barbecues. The same guy who toasted us at our engagement party and called us the healthiest couple he knew. I actually laughed when I realized it. Not because it was funny. Because the alternative was screaming. One message was from 4 days before she disappeared. "I bought the ticket. I'm coming. We need to decide." I called Evan immediately. Straight to voicemail. Then Claire. Her phone was still on the nightstand, glowing stupidly innocent. I remember throwing it across the room so hard it shattered against the wall. That was the first moment it stopped feeling like panic. It became betrayal. Real, physical betrayal. By afternoon, my mother knew something was wrong. She came over and found me sitting in yesterday's clothes surrounded by broken glass, unopened wedding invitations, and 2 empty coffee mugs. "What happened?" I told her. Every word felt humiliating. She went pale. "No," she said. "Not Evan." That hurt in a completely different way. Not disbelief about Claire. Disbelief about family. My brother arrived an hour later. Then my aunt. Then suddenly it felt like my private collapse had turned into a family emergency. People kept asking questions I couldn't answer. How long? Did they sleep together? Did she leave him for him? Where is she now? I didn't know. My aunt started crying and saying there had to be some misunderstanding. I snapped. There are months of messages. What exactly are we misunderstanding? I'm not proud of that. But grief makes you ugly fast. By evening, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Vendors. Friends. Relatives asking about final wedding details. I turned it off. I couldn't survive being the abandoned groom in real time. Claire came back 5 days later. I heard the front door open around 9 at night. I thought for one stupid second that maybe she would explain everything in a way that made the world recognizable again. She walked into the living room looking exhausted. Sunburned. Hollow. And there was a ring on her finger. Not the one I gave her. A thin gold band with a small emerald. I stared at her hand. What is that? She started crying immediately. Please let me explain. No, I said. Answer me first. She looked down. It's Evan's. I honestly don't remember standing up. I just remember hearing myself say, You disappeared a week before our wedding and came back wearing my cousin's ring? She was shaking so hard she could barely talk. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. That sentence still makes me sick. Not because she betrayed me. Because somehow she expected logistics to be the tragedy. We sat across from each other for almost 2 hours. She told me they had dated briefly years before she met me. I knew that part. I didn't know it had never really ended. She said when Evan came back into town last year for family events, everything woke up again. That was her phrase. Woke up. As if what we built together had been sleepwalking. I asked the question I'd been avoiding. Did you sleep with him? She nodded. I felt something inside me collapse quietly. Not dramatic. Not explosive. Just a door closing somewhere deep. How long? 8 months. 8 months. 8 months of dinner with my parents. Wedding planning. Looking me in the eye and asking whether we should have a fall honeymoon or summer honeymoon. I asked why she said yes when I proposed. She cried harder. Because I loved you too. That was somehow worse. Not being unloved. Being loved and betrayed anyway. That's a wound I still don't know how to name. Then came the part one never saw coming. She said she wasn't sure of whose baby she was carrying. For a second I thought I misheard her. What? She put both hands over her face. I'm pregnant. My whole body went cold. How far? About 7 weeks. I actually stood up and backed away from her like she had turned into someone dangerous. Is it mine? I don't know. I remember hitting the kitchen counter so hard my palm bruised. You were going to marry me. I know. You were going to let me stand there in front of everyone and promise my life to you while you didn't even know whose child you had? She started sobbing. I was terrified. I was too angry to speak. That was the moment something irreversible happened. Before that, part of me was still trying to understand. After that, I understood perfectly. She had been willing to let me build my life inside a lie because she was afraid of losing both possible futures. The next few days were chaos. Her parents came over. Mine came over. My aunt called 6 times. My cousin still wouldn't answer me. Claire's father asked if we could handle this privately. That sentence lit me up. Privately? You mean quietly? He didn't answer. Her mother cried and kept saying Claire was confused, overwhelmed, under pressure. I said, Lots of people get stressed. They don't disappear and come back pregnant by a cousin. That room went dead silent. My mother pulled me aside later. Don't say things you can't take back. But everything had already been said. The wedding was officially cancelled. I spent one full afternoon calling vendors and hearing pity in strangers' voices. One florist said, "I'm so sorry. I nearly lost it right there over flowers." People think heartbreak is the big moments. Sometimes it's repeating, "No, the wedding won't be happening," 12 times in one day until it becomes real. Evan finally called me 3 days later. I almost didn't answer. His voice sounded smaller than I remembered. "I didn't mean for this." I laughed so hard it scared even me. "What exactly did you mean for?" He said they reconnected last year. He said Claire told him she was unhappy. He said feelings got complicated. Complicated. That word. I asked him if he loved her. He was quiet. Then he said yes. I asked if he loved me. Longer silence. Then, "You're my family." I said, "Not anymore." He started crying. That should have made me feel something. It didn't. I asked if the ring meant they were engaged. He said no. Just a promise. A promise. My fiancée vanished before our wedding and came back wearing another man's promise. And somehow it was my cousin. That's the part that kept looping in my head at 3 in the morning. Not the sex. Not even the pregnancy. The intimacy of shared betrayal. I wish I could say I walked away cleanly. I didn't. For weeks, Claire kept texting me. "I'm sorry. I miss you. You didn't deserve this. I still care about you." I hated how much those messages mattered. I hated that part of me still waited for her name to light up my phone. Love doesn't die on command. That's one of the cruelest things I've learned. I met her once after that. At a coffee shop halfway across town. She looked thinner. Tired. Older somehow. She told me she hadn't moved in with Evan. She said everything was a mess. She said she didn't know who she was anymore. I wanted to say something cruel. Instead I asked, "Why did you come back?" She stared at her hands. "Because I couldn't bear you hearing it from someone else." I looked at her and thought, you already made sure I would never hear it from you first. That was when I knew there was nothing left to save. The fallout reached everywhere. My aunt stopped speaking to my mother for months because she thought I had humiliated Evan publicly. My brother almost punched him at a family birthday. People picked sides without saying they were picking sides. I stopped going to holidays. Stopped answering calls. Stopped sleeping properly. For a while I developed this weird ritual of driving past the wedding venue after work. I don't know why. Maybe I needed proof that the place still existed even though the future attached to it didn't. I lost 15 pounds. I started forgetting small things. Emails. Appointments. Conversations. My doctor called it stress. My therapist called it trauma. I hated both words. They sounded too neat. What I felt was messier. I felt ashamed for not seeing it. Ashamed for still missing her. Ashamed that some nights I missed the woman I thought she was more than I hated the woman she turned out to be. That kind of grief makes you distrust your own mind. A few months later, I learned the baby was Evan's. I found out through my mother. Apparently everyone had known for a week and nobody wanted to tell me. That almost made me laugh. Even after everything, people were still trying to manage my pain for me. I didn't call Claire. I didn't call Evan either. That was the first time silence felt like power instead of abandonment. They moved to another city before the baby was born. I heard that from relatives too. I saw one photo by accident online. Claire holding a newborn. Evan beside her. They looked tired. Real. Human. Not evil. That messed with me more than I expected. It would have been easier if they had looked monstrous. But they just looked like people who made choices that detonated half a family. I stared at that photo for maybe 30 seconds. Then I blocked both of them. Not out of anger. Out of survival. There are some doors you stop reopening because the air behind them still burns. It's been 3 years now. I live alone in a smaller apartment. Different neighborhood.